Hello, welcome to today's video. We are on page number 165, which is the beginning of chapter 5 in our keyboard musicianship piano for adults book. This is book 1. So in this chapter 5, we're going to be talking about chord inversions, the 1-4-1-6-4-5-7-1 progression in 4 voices. We're doing harmonization, triplets, syncopation, repertoire, musicianship, activities, and of course technique at the end. So let's go ahead and talk about what's on this and the second page after. We're going to be on 165 and 166. It says here that we have the melody American folk song, and let's go ahead and just play through it. We're going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. After playing through, make sure that you are applying the repeated legato technique. It says that we have some chord outlines for the tonic, which is C major on the first 2 bars, and the outline is there. Wait a minute. Why is C in the middle and the 5th there on the bottom, the 3rd on the top? Well, this is still a C major chord, but the chord is inverted, which means the spelling has been changed up a little bit. Let's go ahead now and talk about chord inversions. There in the middle, the rearrangement of chord tones is known as chord inversions. Inversion means to flip something on its head. It says here, study the following chord charts in the root position, first inversion, and second inversion. Notice here, every time we have a different inversion, we always see the root of the chord moving up an octave above the chord. That changes the spelling. But then on the second inversion, the bass note goes up an octave, and now the 5th is the new bass. So this here, we have root position, the figured bass courtesy numbers are 5-3, meaning from the root or the bass note, there is a 3rd above that, and then a 5th above that, in that order. Next, first inversion. The bass is now the 3rd. The figured bass notes or number figures are 6-3. That means there is a 3rd above the bass, which is G, and there is a 6th interval above the bass, meaning C. That's also still the root. And now for second inversion, the bass note is now the 5th, because the 3rd went up above an octave. The figured bass are 6-4, meaning there is a 4th above the bass, which is C, and there's also a 6th interval above that, which is the E. It's a good idea to understand these figured bass notes or numbers to show which inversion is which. 5-3 are courtesy, because in regular figured bass, we would not see that. If it was just the note by itself, it would be empty, but it refers to first in the root position. 6-3, the 3 is a courtesy. You would actually only see 6, and that refers to first inversion, and then 6-4 refers to the second inversion. Please memorize these figures, both full and abbreviated. So it brings us down here to a little bit of an explanation about figured bass. Go ahead and read a little bit about that. Figured bass is old-fashioned, but I still teach it in my lessons for those who are interested. Now, in folk or popular music, another system is used, which is what the standard is today. Instead of numbers in the bass, you will see the chord letters in whatever order or spelling they would be. Okay? Sometimes there's a slash mark. We've already discussed this in the past. Root position means it's just the letter by itself, so we have C major in root position when it's a capital C. Notice here, first inversion is a capital C slash, and then the bass note would be on the right side of the chord name. So if it's C/E, we're going to take our root, put it up an octave, and now the new bass is E, and that's what the /E refers to. That's first inversion. Then we have C/G. Once again, the note that is on the right side of the slash refers to the bass note. We were just in first inversion, but now we're going to take the bass and move that up an octave. Still the chord of C major, but now the G, the fifth, is in the bass. That is after the slash. This is second inversion. Let's go ahead now and identify some other chords here with slashes. We have G/D. What is the name of the chord? It is G. What's inversion is this? This is second inversion because when the bass, when the root is in the middle between the two other tones, that's second inversion. If the bass is on top, then it is in first inversion, and then of course if the bass is on the bottom, it is in root position. Second inversion for this one here. Here's another one. And we have an A minor chord here. Same thing. /C. What did we say about the bass, the root being on top? That is correct. It is in first inversion. And one more. D minor /A. A is in the bass. It looks like the root is in the middle, meaning second inversion. Good job. Let's go ahead and turn the page. Okay, so now we have here once again the American folk song, and the second thing it talked about besides the chord, the triad outline of the tonic, even though it wasn't second inversion, we have the seventh, a G7, which is the dominant of C major, also being spelled out. This is in root position though. This is G7 in root position. It says here, we have that dominant 7, recall from chapter 4, seventh chords have 4 tones. That's why you see these 4 right there. Okay. Root, third, fifth, and 7th. Okay. When we were doing the abbreviated 7th chords, we omitted the 5th of the chord to give us that one right there. Okay. Let's go ahead now and study the inversion of the dominant 7 here. We have them spelled out differently. We're going to start with dominant 7, G7 in root position. When we remove the 5th, we just play it like this without the D. Next, first inversion, we brought G up an octave. This is full version. The figured bass is 6/5. 5/6/5, that's what we call it 1/5/6/5 1 progression. 5/6/5 meaning the figured bass, the pop chord is G7/B, being in the bass, but the abbreviation is usually this one without D. Next, we have second inversion of our G7 chord. This is G7/D because we brought B up an octave. The figured bass is 5/4/3, meaning from the bass there is a fourth interval and there is a third interval. There it is. Good job. And then the last interval is actually a third inversion. You can do 3 inversions with 7th chords because of the 4 tones. Next, we have here G7/F. Here's the bass right next to it. It's a second away from the bass, which is what that figured bass is 4/2, and then a fourth above that note, F, meaning B natural. Excellent. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and understand inversions for both triads and 7th chords. Here we have some common left-hand voicings using 1, dominant 7, 1. See, that's more of a stride way. Both are in root position, or if you want to do the abbreviated way, 1, 5, 6, 5, or G7/B, first inversion, back to C. Let's apply this to a voice leading preview here at the bottom of page 166. Now, in order to avoid awkward sounds, awkward fingerings, or having to move around a lot with the left hand, we're going to move to the nearest chord tones using rules that are known as voice leading. Voice leading means we want to move as little as possible from the chord that we originally are playing. Okay? We're going to find chord tones or try to maintain common tones. Common tones meaning between the 2 chords, is there a note that is exactly the same? And if there is, we don't have to move our finger away from there. So between C and G7, G is the common tone because it is the same. And when we moved over to G7, we moved only a second above from E and a second below from C. Let's take a look here. We have the more difficult arrangement in the first 2 measures. More difficult because we're having to move quite a bit, and then we have a 5/4 fingering with 1. That's a big stretch. 4 is an awkward finger as well. But the more common tone or the easier voice leading would be this one. We didn't have to move very much, and it supplied a sufficient sound for our G7 chord, which is the dominant. Good progression. Let's go ahead now and play the next one, example number 3. Now, as you can see, both were in root position, but we're moving a lot. So instead of having to move so much, let's find something that's more common between the 2. There you go. We have an F chord, C being the common tone. That doesn't have to move away for when we play C. And all we have to do is move a second from the 2 top notes there. And it's perfect voice leading, it's perfect harmony. When playing harmony in the left hand, accompaniment, comping, always remember a pianist wants to move as little as possible, and we want to find those notes that are common. So we'll explore more of these ideas later in the chapter. Please, and we'll see you next time. Practice every day.